There are some feelings we carry so quietly that they become the atmosphere of our lives. Not just emotions that come and go, but deep inner states we begin to live from. Grief, fear, guilt, longing, hope, peace, love. Neville Goddard taught that feeling is the secret, but what did he mean by that? Did he mean forcing yourself to feel happy when you are hurting? Did he mean pretending pain does not exist? Or was he pointing to something deeper? The feeling you return to again and again becomes the state you live from. And the state you live from shapes the way you see yourself, the world, and what is still possible. In this lesson, we'll follow Maya's story. A woman learning how to carry love after loss, not by denying grief, not by pretending her heart was never broken, but by discovering that love can remain, without sorrow being the only feeling she lives from. Welcome to Neville Explained. Today, we're exploring feeling is the secret. When Neville said feeling is the secret, he was not only talking about emotion. He was talking about the inner state a person accepts as true. A mood can pass in a moment, an emotion can rise and fall, but a state is different. A state is the inner place you live from. It is the quiet assumption underneath your thoughts, the feeling beneath your reactions, the identity behind the way you move through life. This is why two people can face the same situation and experience it completely differently. One person may see delay and feel forgotten. Another may see delay and remain steady. One person may remember the past and feel trapped by it. Another may remember the past and still feel guided by love. Neville's teaching asks us to notice the state we are occupying, because the state we keep returning to begins to shape what we expect, what we notice, what we accept, and how we respond. Feeling is the secret because feeling is often the doorway into state. Not forced emotion, not fake happiness, not pretending pain is not real, but the deep inward acceptance of who you are being within yourself. And when that inner state changes, life begins to look different through your own eyes. Maya had learned how to keep going. She still answered messages. She still made tea in the morning. She still opened the curtains and let light into the room. But something inside her had become quiet. Her son, Colby, had been 20 years old when she lost him. And after that, certain moments became difficult. A song, a photograph, a quiet room, a memory arriving without warning. Sometimes the love felt so strong that it hurt, and sometimes the hurt felt so strong that she wondered if peace would mean forgetting him. So Maya carried both, love and grief, memory and pain, tenderness and guilt. She did not want to let go of Colby, but she also did not know how to live without feeling like sorrow was the only proof of love. This is where Neville's teaching begins to matter, because feeling is not just what passes through us for a moment. Feeling can become the state we live from. And Maya was beginning to ask a question she had never allowed herself to ask before. Can love remain without pain being the only way I feel it? Neville's teaching can be easy to misunderstand here. When he said, feeling is the secret, he was not asking people to deny sorrow. He was not saying pain is wrong. And he was not saying that a person should force themselves to feel something they do not honestly feel. Neville was pointing to something deeper. He taught that feeling is the inner acceptance of a state. It is the quiet knowing within you, the sense of reality you live from before anything outside has changed. This is why feeling is so powerful, because feeling is often where identity begins to settle. If someone lives from the feeling of being forgotten, they begin to see life through that lens. If someone lives from the feeling of being unwanted, even love can feel difficult to receive. If someone lives from guilt, peace may feel undeserved. But if the inner state begins to change, the way life is experienced begins to change with it. For Maya, this did not mean pretending she was not grieving. It meant gently asking whether grief had become the only state through which she allowed herself to love Colby. Neville's teaching invited her to enter a different feeling. Not a feeling that erased her son, but a feeling that honored him with love, peace, and gratitude. A feeling that said, "Love is still here, and I am allowed to live from love without only living from pain." So how does someone practice this? Not by forcing emotion, not by pretending everything is fine, and not by trying to silence what the heart honestly feels. The practice begins with stillness, a quiet moment, a breath, a willingness to notice what state you have been living from. For Maya, this meant sitting with the memory of Colby without running from it. She would light a candle, open her journal, and let the love be present. At first, the love came with sadness. That was honest. That was human. But slowly, she began to ask, can I feel his love without only feeling the loss? Can I remember his smile without only returning to the day I lost him? Can I let gratitude sit beside grief? This is not something a person forces. It is something a person allows. Gently, quietly, again and again. Maya began to imagine Colby's memory not as a wound pulling her backward, but as a light still present in her life. She did not erase the sorrow. She simply made room for another feeling to live beside it. Love, peace, gratitude. And over time, the feeling she returned to began to change the state she lived from. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself gently, what feeling have I been living from? Not just what emotion did I feel today, but what inner state have I been returning to again and again? Have I been living from fear, from guilt, from disappointment, from the belief that life will always be the same? Or have I made room for another feeling? Peace, trust, love, gratitude, possibility. Neville's teaching does not ask us to deny what hurts. It asks us to notice whether pain has become the only place we know how to live from. For Maya, this question was tender, because grief had become familiar. Sorrow had become part of how she stayed close to Colby. But slowly, she began to understand something important. She did not have to choose between love and peace. She could love him deeply and still allow peace to return. She could remember him with tenderness and still let gratitude breathe beside the grief. So maybe the question for us is not, how do I force myself to feel better? Maybe the question is, what feeling am I willing to return to today, even for one quiet moment? Because one quiet moment can become a doorway, and a doorway can become a new state. Feeling is the secret, because feeling is the doorway into the state we live from. And the state we live from quietly shapes the way we experience life. For Maya, the change was not sudden, it was not dramatic, and it did not erase her grief. But something gentle began to shift. She began to understand that peace did not mean forgetting Colby. Gratitude did not mean the loss no longer mattered. And living again did not mean she loved him any less. Love could remain, memory could remain, tenderness could remain. But sorrow did not have to be the only place she returned to. This is the quiet power of Neville's teaching. Not forcing a feeling, not pretending pain is not real, but choosing again and again the inner state from which we are willing to live. So today, ask yourself gently, what feeling am I returning to? What state am I allowing to become familiar? And is there a softer, truer feeling I can enter now, even for a moment? Peace, love, trust, gratitude. A new state does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it begins quietly, in one breath, one memory held differently, one moment where love is allowed to feel like light again. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next lesson, stay curious, reflect deeply, and take good care of your mind.